reality is I've lost friends for all kinds of reasons because I've switched jobs, because I've moved, because I'm no longer in high school, because I've outgrown them. The number one reason, honestly, is because I don't have children and many of my friends went on to have kids. When you live with bipolar disorder, you tend to think that the only reason that you lose people is because of bipolar disorder. And I don't think that serves us. I think maybe a better way to look at it is, when you were sick, these were your friends. But as you reached recovery, as you got better, you made different friends because your situation changed. And I think that's much healthier than saying, well, bipolar disorder cost me all my friends.
You're listening to Inside Bipolar, a Healthline Media podcast, where we tackle bipolar disorder using real-world examples and the latest research.
Hey, everybody, welcome to the podcast. My name is Gabe Howard, and I live with bipolar disorder.
And I'm Dr. Nicole Washington, a board-certified psychiatrist.
And we continue to get your email. So keep them coming to show@psychcentral.com. You can share grows, glows, and everything in between. But what we really like are your topic suggestions. And one of the emails that Dr. Nicole and I got said, hey, can you talk about people with bipolar disorder being taken advantage of for having bipolar disorder? And this actually created a little bit of an email exchange, because I was like, how do you get taken advantage of for having bipolar disorder? You mean like high insurance premiums, like pre-existing conditions? Like that's where my mind went. Like what came to your mind, Dr. Nicole, when you first saw this, people with bipolar disorder being taken advantage of as a topic?
Well, I think my patients get taken advantage of all the time. So when I saw the email, I was thinking more like, oh, in what way? Like, do we have enough time to talk about all the ways that a person with bipolar disorder could be taken advantage of?
You're not wrong. People with bipolar disorder get taken advantage of in just innumerable ways. But I wasn't sure what the author of the email was talking about. So I wrote back and I said, hey, as somebody who lives with bipolar disorder, I do in fact feel put upon, right? I do feel like people use my bipolar disorder against me. And that's kind of taking advantage of my weakness in order to exploit something out of me or to get something over on me. But I'm just curious, one bipolar to another. What do you mean? And the author wrote back and said that people blame stuff on her for having bipolar disorder, or people will say things to her like, oh, well, I really need to go home and get up early, but I could be persuaded to stay if you buy pizza. And they're saying that again, and this became so relatable so quickly, Dr. Nicole, but they're saying that because they know the person doesn't like to be alone at night. It really became this really interesting conversation that one, if the author is listening, thank you. It was a great conversation. But two, it's like, wow, these are your friends and family members who are doing
Right.
this. Wow. And then I reflected back to my own experience and I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I blocked it out or but it all came flooding back. This happened to me constantly.
When you say it happened to you constantly, we have to break this down because happened to me constantly brings up all kinds of images for me in all the ways that a person could take advantage of someone with bipolar illness. And I know one of the big ones is that loneliness. It's that I don't want to be alone. Did that come up for you at all when you thought back to, oh my gosh, people preyed on that for me?
Yeah, the two things that came to mind are, one, I was a huge hockey fan in my early 20s and I had season tickets. And the number of people who would be like, well, Gabe is happy when he goes to hockey and he's clearly chasing happiness. And if I tell him that I won't go, he'll just give me the ticket. And they knew that I was desperate to have this happiness. They knew that I didn't want to go to the game alone. And even though they had the resources to buy their own ticket, or listen, they had the resources to buy me a soda and a pretzel at the game. They had the resources to pay for parking, right? They could have done some sort of gesture of, hey, thanks for bringing me to the game. But instead, they reframed that in their own mind as, we're doing Gabe a favor. It makes Gabe
Oh.
happy to go. So therefore, Gabe owes us. We don't owe him.
So it sounds like in that situation, people used the fact that you were maybe depressed or not in a good space mentally, and needing people, needing community. They use that to be really crappy friends, it sounds like, because it sounds like they just kind of phoned it in. They really didn't reciprocate. They just felt like, well, I mean, Gabe's depressed, so just my being here is good enough. Like
Exactly.
just my being here is enough, and he's depressed, and I don't really have to give him the full effort that I give in usual friendships because, well, he's depressed. He's just glad I'm here, and so I'm just going to show up.
Exactly. And this really does boil down to a situation where two things can be true. I was very glad that they were there. They did enhance the experience for me. There is a reason that I bought two tickets, even though I did not have a steady person who always went to the game, because I learned very early on that I had more fun if I took somebody. What really bothered me about it is, look, I had the money, I had the resources, and this did bring me joy. So that is true. But it doesn't mean that you got to be a jackass about it. And I really like, look, I'm getting a little angry, right? I can tell you that Gabe Howard today, right now, Dr. Nicole, think of a band, any musical act that you think I would hate. Just think of it. Just think
That
of a
I think
concert.
you would
Yeah, that you would be like,
hate.
Gabe would not like this music, but that you yourself would get a lot of enjoyment from. Just any band. I'm just curious as to what you name at this point.
Cave, that's so hard. But it'd be hard for me to like. I think that you wouldn't like.
Yeah, that you think that I wouldn't like, but you would love. Just a musical act, a concert. And you know what? You can go at any point in history. They don't even have to
Well,
be currently touring.
we had the conversation that I went to go see Meg the Stallion and Glorilla in concert. We had that conversation, and you were
But see, I'd
like,
like that. I love Megan Thee Stallion. Megan Thee Stallion is awesome, right? You're like
I don't know.
you're
I
speaking my
mean,
language. I would dig that.
yeah. I
I'd
went.
also like Beyonce. You went to Beyonce, and I was super
I
jealous.
did go to Beyonce. I went to see Lil Wayne. Lil Wayne, maybe. I don't know.
So Little Wayne. Okay, I would not hate Little Wayne,
But you
but
wouldn't choose to go.
I would not go on my own. That is a
Yes.
concert that if it came to my town, I would not go to.
Yes.
But just to make it a little spicy, right? Just to make the conversation a little spicy, let's say that I hate Lil Wayne, right?
Okay.
Like Lil Wayne's music was like nails on a chalkboard to me,
Okay.
right? But for some reason, you're like, Gabe, I want to go to Lil Wayne, and you are the only one who can go. Just everybody else is unavailable. You're the only one who can go, and I will buy your ticket. I will pick you up and drive you to the concert, and we will go to Lil Wayne. And again, remember, nails on a chalkboard to me, I would still insist upon paying for parking. I would still buy you a drink and a pretzel. I would take you to dinner beforehand. I would thank you for inviting me. And I would recognize, and this is super important, Dr. Nicole, I would recognize that you are having more fun because I am there. And that would be meaningful to me.
Right.
And
Right.
I would like to believe, just to put the onus back on you a little bit, I would like you to believe, right? You're like, Gabe doesn't even like Lil Wayne. So
Yeah.
Gabe must really care about me
Yeah.
to come. And what a nice gesture. It's like that in my mind makes the experience better. Not if I was like, well, you owe me for this.
Yeah.
Well, you're welcome.
Yes. But I think what you're describing is a real friendship. It is a real give and take. It is a real reciprocating relationship. And I think what happens for folks with bipolar disorder, once you come out of this depression, and you start to evaluate those relationships and the terms of those relationships and what it's been, you kind of start to realize, like, maybe these really aren't good friends for me. Like, maybe I value friendship in a different way. And so what you're describing sounds totally normal. It sounds like how friendship should be. It should be give and take. I should be willing to do something that you really enjoy that maybe I don't like as much if it makes you happy and you really want me there. You should be willing to do the same for me. We should be able to give and take. That's normal. That's a healthy relationship. And maybe when you're in that depressed state, you aren't as great a judge of what's healthy and what's not.
I want to be transparent with the audience that I was desperate. I was chasing that happiness, and I wanted to go to these games so desperately that I was willing to let people treat me like this. I was willing to let them do this. And this really does boil down to just because you can doesn't mean that you should. The reality is my 10-year-old niece, she's tiny and weak. I can steal from her. It's not hard, right? I am bigger than her, stronger than her. I have more power. I have more authority. And if I wanted to, I could take the money out of her bedroom and she could not stop me. But I don't do that because I want to be a good uncle. It's not that I can't, it's that I won't. And I'm surprised at the number of people who are doing this to people who are vulnerable and desperate and lonely and afraid. But the bigger concern, and to get us a little bit back on track after that small little tangent, is I didn't feel that I deserved that respect. It didn't bother me either. That is what keeps popping in my brain as I'm reflecting back. I was okay with this arrangement. I was.
So in some ways you brought it. I mean, I don't want to say you brought it on yourself, but in some ways you were of a mindset of I'll just take whatever you can give me. And you didn't have any expectations of the people in your life for them to treat you better or to be better friends or to be more engaged. You just took whatever people gave.
Yeah. Yeah, I did take what I could get, and I felt lucky because of it. In those moments, these people, these regular, normal people, were spending time with broken Gabe. So that is a part that I want to address because looking and reflecting back, it really bothers me that I honestly thought that just spending time with me was an act of charity. I mean, what kind of a thought process was going through my mind where I spend hundreds of dollars on somebody, take them to a professional sporting event, spend 5 hours, 6 hours with them. They do nothing. They're barely even thankful. They never reciprocate. And in my mind, I owe them. I think that this is what the author of the email was addressing because I think they're starting to realize that especially as they get better with therapy and medication and get more stable, they're starting to look at these relationships that they once held so dear and the cracks are forming.
Mhm. I think it also causes you in some ways to let go of some of the frustration with these people, and maybe not. I mean, it can still feel like a very crummy thing to do, but you do have to take a step back and say, but I kind of let all this happen. Like I invited this at this time. I wasn't in the best of space. And honestly, I'd like to think that someone who really is a friend and close with me and in my inner circle would see that and continue to foster that relationship. But I let this happen. Like if I'm going to be frustrated with anybody, I'm frustrated with me for letting it happen and for keeping these people around. I think that gives you a little more power. I love it when we can find moments to take our power back because I think it's easy to kind of sit back and say, well, these people took advantage of me and I was depressed and da 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 da. And it's like, you know what? But I did let that happen. I did. I allowed that to happen and I'm not going to allow it to happen anymore. I have a much better understanding of what true relationships look like and friendships and taking my power back. I'm not going to waste a lot of energy on those things that those people did back then. I think that's very empowering.
As you know, I'm really big on we just can't blame everybody else for things that we allowed to happen. They have their own skin in the game. They are to blame as well. Remember the
They
example
are.
that I used, just because you can
Yeah,
doesn't mean you should.
they
But
are.
I was a grown adult. Here is I think where the frustration is coming in for the author of the email, and where my mind keeps going. Why did I let it happen? And what do I do about it now?
Yeah.
And is the relationship salvageable? Now, I have the advantage of hindsight is 2020. The vast majority of those relationships were not salvageable. The minute I started enforcing boundaries, the minute that I started letting people know that they can't treat me this way, and we haven't even gotten to romantic relationships yet. I'm still on platonic relationships here. But the minute that I started teaching people how to treat me,
Hmm.
the minute I knew better, so I did better,
Yeah.
people just started going away. And
Yeah.
that, of course, that was tough as well because I did value those friendships even though I didn't like the way they were treating me.
Listen. I know it's hard to lose people that you feel like were valuable to you. But when you start to do that work and you start reflecting on those relationships, you realize they weren't as valuable as you thought they were. Doesn't stop it from hurting any less. But you asked the question, well, what do I do about it now? Like how did I get there, and what do I do to not let it happen again? Well, that's where all the work comes in. That's where all these episodes we've done. That all everything we've done has built up into, well, what do I do now? You do what you're doing right now. You continue to educate yourself. You see your therapist, because guess what? I would be willing to bet $1 that this is not the first time you've doubted your worth in something. This is not the first time that you've doubted, do I deserve this? I'm not worthy of that. Those are not themes that typically hit just one area of your life. Those are things that tend to be with you, and they hit you in your workplace, and they hit you in those romantic relationships and friendships. They hit you in all kinds of places. So I mean, treatment. That's what you do. You work towards getting better. You have the peers, you have the therapist, you have the Dr. Nicole. Like, this is all part of the what does your team do for you? This is what your team does for you.
Well, this is what the work looks like, right? I
Yeah.
mean, I know we talk about putting in the work and learning the
Yes.
coping skills and gaining the experience and improving your life, but that's all Dr. Nicole speak, right? For Gabe speak, it means cutting off the friend. It means sitting with the loneliness. It means learning to be alone. It means accepting that things suck today and that situation sucked, but the future can be better. That's what real wellness is. Those choices got me through.
Yes.
So I think there's a little bit of reframing that needs to happen on, look, I tolerated it then because I did get something out of it and it's what I needed in the moment,
Hmm.
but I'm not willing to tolerate it anymore.
Yeah. And I think there are levels. There are levels to wellness when it comes to your bipolar disorder. So in the beginning, you're not thinking about setting boundaries with friends and things. You're focused on staying out of the hospital. You're focused on avoiding big mood episodes that impair your functioning. You're focused on the big things. The big things are important then, and that's where your focus is, and that's where it should be. But as you get to a more stable place, as you get closer to where you want to be, you can then start to think about those little things, those little pieces that add up to your total wellness. That's when you start thinking about friendships. So you're right. I wouldn't beat myself up that, oh man, 2 years ago, I let people treat me any kind of way. But I would say, man, I let people treat me any kind of way when I wasn't as stable. I need to stay stable so that I can make sure that I am honoring myself in that way and not letting people walk all over me. That's that next level. Those aren't the things you're worried about early on. So if you are listening and you think, I don't have time to think about my friends. My focus is on, can I keep a job? Can I stay out of the hospital? Can I pay my bills? You focus on that for now. These are these next level things that once you hit all those check boxes along the way and you hit all those mile markers along the way, eventually you're going to get to this place where these are the kinds of things that you're going to be thinking about and you're going to be working on. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with it taking you a while to get here.
And once again, I go back to the know better, do better, right? So you were willing to tolerate that then. Okay, fine. No harm, no foul. You both got what you wanted, right? You wanted somebody to take to a hockey game in this analogy, and they wanted to go for free. But now you want to renegotiate. So let's talk for a moment about that renegotiation. Because I got to tell you, the knee jerk reaction and the way that we've been discussing this and the way that we've sort of been framing this is to sit somebody down and read in the riot act, right?
Cut them
How
off. Just cut
dare
them off.
you?
Just
I
cut
was
them off.
desperate and sad. Yeah,
Cut them
like
off.
just, but let's not do that
Oh,
because
okay. We're not cutting them off. And we're back discussing being taken advantage of in relationships when you have bipolar disorder.
I don't think that we should cut them off because it is possible
Okay.
that they didn't know. Right. Maybe
Oh,
they fell in a
okay.
rut too. Maybe they had their own stuff going on. Maybe they honestly
Okay.
thought, hey, he's cool with it, so I don't need to do anything. Right. If you want to salvage the relationship, you've got to practice some other skills. Right. Like saying,
Okay.
I've been thinking, I enjoy going to the hockey game with you, but I I really think that it's time that you pull your own weight. Otherwise, I'm going to invite some other folks. Or I really have enjoyed going to the hockey game with you, but I got to tell you, it's kind of gotten to me that it's become an expectation of yours, and that you've never bought me a diet soda or a pretzel or offered to pay for parking or offered to drive. Right? It's kind of bothering me. Or if you just want to rip the band-aid off and say, "Hey, I really enjoy our time together, but I feel like you think you're doing me a favor, and I got to tell you that makes me feel some kind of way, and I want to talk to you about it." And use appropriate discussion skills. Don't be like, "Hey, you suck and you're taking advantage of me and I want this to stop right now, you piece of crap." Right?
Yeah,
That's not going to work.
don't come in with how many hockey games you've been to, how much money you've spent on hot dogs and parking and gas. That's probably not a good time to do that. But I do agree with being open about I get that I was asking you to do this. And in hindsight, I realized hockey might not have even been your thing. You were just going because I was asking you to go, and maybe you did feel like you were doing me a favor back then, but I'm in a better place. I don't need you to go with me as a favor. I am looking for more of an equal partnership in going to these games. So, I would like to go with someone who's willing to cut the cost of gas and parking and those kinds of things. If you're not, it's totally fine. I will find somebody else and you and I can do something else that's more your speed. I think it's okay to give them the out, because ultimately, if you really want to salvage this relationship, then you shouldn't be upset that they say, "Yeah, hockey really never was my thing. I was just going with you." But they could come around and say, "Yeah, hockey wasn't my thing, but now, I mean, I'm kind of into it. I kind of dig it. I kind of like it. Yeah, I'll pay half a parking. Sure, I hadn't thought about it. Like maybe it'll work out fine. Maybe Dr. Nicole's cut them off is not the answer all the time, but I do like to always give people permission if it is an unhealthy thing, be okay cutting it off.
There is absolute wisdom in being willing to cut it off. And again, accepting that you might be alone for a while and that it might take some time to make a new friend. But by cutting them off, you open yourself up to other opportunities. But I just, sometimes we get angry at ourselves for letting things happen. And when I think of being taken advantage of, and I genuinely feel that I was taken advantage of, I can feel the anger welling up even 25 years later.
One of the places I see that, it made me think about my patients who are the life of the party when they're manic, and who go through these extended periods of hypomania or mania, and they're wanting to go out and kick it every weekend and stay out late, and I mean, they're the life of the party. They're having fun. I mean, you've talked about you dancing on tables. They're the life. Everybody knows they're in the room when they're in the room. And then when that person starts to achieve more stability, less mania, less hypomania, sometimes they get the folks who are like, "Man, you used to be fun. You're so boring. Like you used to be so cool." And you're like, "No, I used to be so sick." And I have a hard time believing that some of those people didn't know that that person was in a mood episode. They didn't know that was just that person's the life of the party, and they sure do know how to have fun. And that is a place where I just really get very frustrated. And I will say my cut it off comes out real loud and big, when somebody is getting mad at you for not being manic anymore, or getting on you and calling you boring and stuffy and uppity, or whatever words they want to. "Oh, you make more money, you think you don't need." Yeah, I make more money because I'm stable, and because I can keep a job, and because I'm not depressed, and I'm not manic. And yes, excitement is overrated. Consistency, boring is sexy as all get out. Let me tell you something. Stability is sexy. Like that is it. And sometimes some people just, they're uncomfortable with your stability.
I think it's really important to point out, and I'm gonna sound like an old guy when I say this, and I hate sounding like an old guy, but I didn't lose friends just because of bipolar disorder and getting well. I also lost friends because they had kids and I didn't. I also lost friends because they moved away. I also lost friends because I switched jobs. I also lost friends because we just grew apart and developed different interests. I think that sometimes we get in our own heads and we think that the friends we have now are the friends that we're going to have forever. There is a part of me that wishes that we all grew together and we all followed the same path and that, the people who I knew in high school were still around. But here's the reality. The people who I knew in high school are no longer around. And not all of them are because Gabe had bipolar disorder. And
Yeah.
in fact, the number one reason that Gabe Howard has lost friends is because they all got married and had kids. And I never had kids. And eventually we just grew apart because they started doing parent things. They started focusing all their attention on these human beings that depended on them for everything. And suddenly we did not have compatible lives. And for some reason that didn't make me mad. I mourn it a little bit. We grew apart and it was sad, but there's this part of me that's happy for them. They got what they wanted out of life. So I do think that there is some wisdom to mine there. That
Yeah.
yeah, when you were sick, these were your friends. But when you got better, you made different friends. And maybe that's okay. People grow apart for all kinds of reasons.
Yes, that is an excellent point. And like you always say, when you have bipolar disorder, sometimes it's hard not to view every crummy thing in the lens of it's because of bipolar disorder. Bipolar did this to me. Bipolar took that from me. You're right. We gain and lose friends at every change in our journey, whatever that looks like. I'm sure when you get married, you sometimes lose single friends. When you have kids, you sometimes lose the ones who don't have kids. When your kids grow up and they're no longer in the house, you sometimes are not then hanging out with people who have little kids because you don't want to be around little kids. You at every step and at every fork in the road, and you have to choose which direction to go, somebody's going to get left behind. You just don't ever take everybody with you. It's not always bipolar disorder.
But this is a podcast about bipolar disorder, so it's sort of hard not to see things through that lens, right? I don't think somebody's hitting play who has a good foundational knowledge of human relationships, and right, it just hurts, right? They had a friend and now they don't. And now they realize that friend was kind of mean to them or took advantage of them or took them for granted or didn't reciprocate, or now they just have negative feelings about somebody who they used to have positive feelings about.
Yeah,
I that's hard to sit with. Dr. Nicole, you got to have something better than look. We all grow apart. I don't
we
have anything
do.
better. You do. You
We
you went to medical
do. I
school.
mean,
Fix it,
we
Dr. Nicole. Give these people the wisdom. Give them the wisdom.
Yeah, the wisdom is to know that, yeah, it sucks. Making friends, especially as an adult, I think sucks. And it is not easy for everybody. And it sucks to know that there are people out there that would take advantage of you or would pull away from you, whether it's because you got better or because you got worse. That is never going to be easy for you to sit with. And yes, living with bipolar disorder means that could happen to you. My general thought is they just weren't meant for you. Like they weren't meant for you. That they weren't meant to be your friend. They weren't a good friend, but they just weren't meant to be. And I am a big, big believer of it will work itself out. It will happen. It may hurt like hell to get there, but eventually it will get there. And you will have the right friends in place and they will fit and it will feel good. And you'll say, I am so glad that I'm hanging with these people tonight and not those people I was whining over 5 years ago, because these are my people right now. And all we can ever do is worry about who are your people right now, because 5 years from now, the people you're hanging out with may not even be the same ones from right now. So we just never know what directions life is going to take us. All that woo woo stuff about people are in your life for a reason, a season, a lifetime. It sounds like really sappy stuff, but it is true. There are people that come into your life for short periods of time. They are there for a reason. That friend, the hockey friend, served a purpose. They filled a need for you in that moment. That was their reason. But you know what? Their season ended. And that allowed somebody else's season to come through. And that allowed you to make friends that you probably have today that you may not have made had that not happened, and let that person walk out of your life. And then there are people that are going to be in your life for a lifetime and for very long chunks of time. And that is just life, bipolar or not. So I don't have anything to tell you to make you be okay with the person who left you because you got better or left you because you got worse. Good riddance. Good
Good riddance.
riddance.
Good riddance. That is easier said than done. And as we're nearing the end of the show, one of the things that I want to make sure that we talk about is that interim time. Right. So we have now realized that we need to set a firm boundary. We've tried to set that boundary. We've either cut off the person by choice or that person has just fallen away now that we have set that hard boundary and we're not going to be taken advantage anymore. Whatever reason that person is now distant or out of your life, just for the purposes of this next conversation, they gone.
Okay.
They are gone. Now,
Bye-bye.
it is super easy for Gabe and Dr. Nicole to say, but don't worry, you'll meet someone new. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, super easy, right?
No,
But
it's not easy. I just said making friends sucks. I do not make friends easy. I am not a friendly person. I am not a
you
let's
don't,
make friends
but you
person.
you ended it with you're gonna, right? You just so cavalierly said, but you will make a new friend. And I gotta be honest, I think our listeners are sitting at home and they're like, nope, gonna be alone forever. Whatever
Well, of
age
course you think that. Of
yeah,
course
yeah.
you'll think that in that moment. Yes, of course you'll think I'll never have friends again. I'm never gonna blah blah
But that
blah.
moment lasts months. That moment lasts,
Yes,
like you said, it's hard to make friends.
it
So
is
your
hard to
old
make
friends are gone.
old
You
friends are
don't
gone.
have the new friends yet. So
Nope.
now it's Friday night. You're watching reruns of Friends or The Big Bang Theory or Cheers. I don't know how old the listeners are.
Wow. Cheers. I don't even think Cheers comes on TV anymore. Somebody right now is Googling Cheers TV show because they have no clue what Cheers even is.
Did you say comes on TV? How old are you? It's on streaming. It's on streaming, Dr.
Yeah,
Nicole.
but nobody's going to know what this is. They're going to say Cheers TV
Well,
show.
it's a great show and you should watch it, and our older listeners will. I know what Cheers is. Oh, I just called myself an older listener. this this went south. But Dr. Nicole, my point is, when you're sitting at home alone on that Friday night watching the reruns of your show, eating cold popcorn that you popped and forgot about, and you're miserable, and you're reflecting back on I used to have Friday plans. Hearing a bunch of people say, "Don't worry, you'll make friends in the future, and it gets better, and you'll be okay." It it's shitty. It's almost mean, right? It's just I want to acknowledge that those Friday nights, they're gonna suck.
Yeah. And I know you say, well, I'm just telling people, yeah, it's going to suck but eventually it's going to work out. It seems like I don't have a lot to offer. And you may be thinking Dr. Nicole is really not pulling her weight in this episode. But I will tell you, I do think there is value with sitting with that discomfort of it sucking. Like I think there is value in that when things around you feel very crummy and sticky and nasty and smelly, like there is some value in sitting still for a second and just saying, like, it stinks. What is that smell? What is that feeling? Why do I feel this way? How did I get here? Am I okay that I got here? Like, would I rather be alone in this space or would I rather continue to be in relationship with people that obviously don't value me or I don't value them anymore? Like, what would I want? Like, would I want that? I want healthier relationships. So then how do I get those? I think those sticky, nasty, smelly moments are the moments where you really come up with a plan. And it sounds like you had to experience and be really aware of how uncomfortable you were to be able to say, oh, I don't like this. Like, what am I going to do to fix this?
I could not agree more. The reality is discomfort is the first step towards getting comfortable. You have to acknowledge that the chair is too hard before you're going to start looking for a better chair. But yeah, you're going to have to sit in a lot of chairs. The more time that you spend on people who are making you feel badly about yourself, it's the less time you're spending looking for people who are going to make you feel good about yourself. But it's a long process, and it's a crummy process, and it's not the type of process that you're going to remember fondly later, but it's also not the kind of process that you dwell on once you meet the people who make you happy. I am embarrassed that I was taken advantage of. I am embarrassed that people sought to do it. I'm embarrassed that I found myself in that situation, but I don't regret it. I did what I needed to do to get to the next day. I did what I needed to do to chase down what happiness I could. I surrounded myself with the best people who I could find in the moment until I realized that I deserved better people. And from this vantage point, I'm really proud of myself for the work that I did. And again, this is all plutonic. We didn't even get into romantic relationships. And oh my God, the landmines that you step in to be, oh my God, just we get taken advantage of because of our time and money. Oh my God, the emotional toll of being taken advantage of in a romantic relationship. We absolutely have to cover that in an upcoming episode because
We
the
do.
dynamics of that are just, well, pardon the pun, insane.
We do. And I hate that. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. And I know, here I am, cut it off. But I hate that you felt embarrassed. I hate it when my patients tell me I feel embarrassed that I allowed this to happen to me. And you know, really, who should be embarrassed? Those suckers who did the taking advantage of. That's who should feel embarrassed. They should look back on their lives and say, you know what? I really messed up as a friend. I was really not on my A game as a friend, and I sucked. They're the ones that should be embarrassed. But I'll let it go. I won't be so angry with them. I'll calm down, I guess.
Dr. Nicole, it is always fun hanging out with you. Listen, the entirety of this episode came from an email exchange between a super awesome listener and myself. So please, if you have topic ideas, if you have show ideas, if there is something that we do that you love, if there is something that we do that you hate, you've got to let us know at show@psychcentral.com. One of the hardest parts about doing this podcast is y'all have opinions, but you're not in the audience, so we can't see your faces. We can't judge by your laughter or your applause. We can't tell when you're uncomfortably shifting in your seat, wishing that we would move on. You gotta be honest with us. Grows and glows, hit us up at show@psychcentral.com. Thanks everybody for hanging out with us. We need some favors wherever you downloaded this episode. Please follow or subscribe to the show. It is absolutely free and you don't want to miss a thing. Another favor that we need, tell everybody about this podcast. Support groups, emails, text messages, share your favorite episodes on social media. Letting people know that the Inside Bipolar podcast exists is the best way for us to continue reaching people. We don't have ad money, so we're counting on you to share the show because that's how we're going to grow. All right, everybody. My name is Gabe Howard, and as you know, I live with bipolar disorder, and I also wrote the book Mental Illness is an Asshole and Other Observations, which you can get on Amazon or wherever they sell books, but don't. What you want to do is go over to gabehoward.com. That's my website, and I will send you a copy that I sign, and I'll send you some free swag. That is gabehoward.com.
And I'm Dr. Nicole Washington. You can find me on my website at drnicolepsych.com.
And we will see everybody next time on the Inside Bipolar podcast.
You've been listening to Inside Bipolar from Healthline Media and PsychCentral.com. Have feedback for the show? Email us at show@psychcentral.com. Previous episodes can be found at psychcentral.com/IBP or on your favorite podcast player. Thank you for listening.